In a scathing 300-page report, the House Oversight Committee has blasted the Obama administration and former corrupt Attorney General Eric Holder for their cover-up of the Fast and Furious gun-running scandal, a scandal that was implicated in the death of an American law officer. CNN responded to the report by calling for the impeachment of President Trump because he made an untoward remark to James Comey. According to the House report, Holder and Obama's corrupt Justice Department did everything they could to withhold information from the family of Brian Terry, the American lawman who was murdered by gangsters using guns which Obama's DOJ had allowed them to buy. Holder regarded the grieving family of the murdered law officer as a, quote, nuisance, even though they were grieving, and the family of a law officer who was murdered by gangsters with guns that Holder and Obama had allowed them to buy. CNN journalists responded to the report by screaming for 7 straight hours about the fact that President Trump had clumsily asked James Comey to let go of his investigation into Michael Flynn. No law officers were killed in the conversation. Eric Holder became the first corrupt attorney general to ever be held in contempt of Congress for his refusal to turn over documents relating to the Fast and Furious scandal, which, as I may have mentioned, was implicated in the murder of an American lawman who was fighting Mexican drug dealers who were using guns that Obama's DOJ had allowed to fall into their hands in the scandal that Holder and Obama were covering up. CNN reported on the House Oversight Committee's findings, saying, quote, unquote, not only was Eric Holder found in contempt of Congress for his refusal to turn over documents relating to the Fast and Furious scandal, a scandal which was implicated in the death of an American law officer, but President Barack Obama granted Holder executive privilege so that he wouldn't have to turn over documents. Obama's actions served to further obstruct the investigation into the scandal, which facilitated the buying of guns by Mexican gangsters who later killed an American law officer, whose grieving family was deemed a nuisance by Eric Holder, who was granted executive privilege by Obama so he wouldn't have to reveal the truth. CNN commentators say that this amounts to obstruction of justice by Donald Trump because he made an inappropriate remark, during which no one died, because it was a remark, not one of thousands of guns that had been sold to Mexican gangsters and then used in a shootout in which a law officer died, which Eric Holder then covered up with Barack Obama's help. According to CNN commentator Anderson Lieface, quote, Donald Trump is clearly in violation of some sort of law or something and is a doo-doo stinky-dink who is worse than Watergate, whatever that was, unquote. James Comey has now finished his public testimony about the Russia investigation, and law officers are continuing not to die in that investigation the way they did die during Fast and Furious, which Holder and Obama covered up. This is not CNN. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray, it makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray, oh, hooray, hurrah.
All right, here we are in a show directly from my house. I'm in the loft of my house. You may notice that I saw a Shapiro show from his house earlier, and he had books behind him. You may notice there are no books behind me. That's because Shapiro took my books, basically. There were books, I swear, this place was loaded with books when I went to sleep last night. Today, all the books are in Shapiro's house, and my house is empty. We'll start off with the big news, which is from Mozambique, where people are beheading, killing bald men because the witch doctors have convinced them that a bald man's head is filled with gold. And I just want to point out that this is the savagery of socialism, because it's not your gold. It's my gold. That's why I keep it in my head, because it's mine. So just leave me alone. You know, this brings me to the question of how well or badly you are dressed. And I look at yourself. I mean, if you're watching the show, it's a pretty good bet that you really don't know how to comport yourself in any way or in polite company. And the thing is, you know, you can go into any store and buy a suit off the rack and they'll take it in a little bit and fit it to you. But when you get a real suit that is really made directly for you, you just look better. That's true. And with Indochino, you can do it at a price you can afford, because these these bespoke suits, these tailored just for you suits, are really, really expensive, but not at Indochino. In fact, I'm wearing my Indochino shirt today, and I have to tell you, it fits like a glove. They did such a good job. And you just go in, what you do is you go into your local Indochino fitting shop, or you go online and you just send them your measurements. Have your wife measure you, and you can send in those measurements, and then they have the measurements online, and they can just manufacture a suit directly for you that will come to you for a price you can afford. You can choose from hundreds of top quality fabrics, personalize your suit just the way you want it, which is really fun, by the way. You can pick the cuffs, you can pick the collar you want, you can pick up whether you want a pocket or not, all that stuff, and you just create the entire suit and the entire shirt that you want. And they've done this for hundreds of thousands of guys. They're now the largest made-to-measure menswear brand in the world. You just visit the showroom, or shop online at Indochino.com. You pick your fabric, choose your customizations, submit your measurements, and you place your order and wait for it to arrive in just a few weeks. And this week, my listeners can get any premium Indochino suit for just $379, which, believe me, if you're talking about a suit this well made just for you, is an incredible price. That's Indochino.com, and then you enter Klavan at checkout, which is, as always, spelled Klavan. Enter that at checkout, and you'll get 50% off the regular price for a made-to-measure premium suit, and the shipping is free. This is a good deal. That's Indochino.com, promo code Klavan for any premium suit for just $379 and free shipping. An incredible deal for a suit that will fit you better than anything off the rack ever could. Now, we have to open with the most important thing. I know, a lot of you are thinking about James Comey and his testimony and all that, but more important than this, long after James Comey will be forgotten, is the fact that I mistakenly attributed to the poet William Butler Yeats yesterday a poem by W.H. Auden. And this, of course, will go down in history as one of my rare errors. But, I was talking about Sigmund Freud, and I said that Yeats had written a poem about Freud. Auden wrote the poem about Freud, and he also wrote an obituary poem about Yeats, and that's why I got the two of them confused. Auden, one of the last great poets in the English language. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure we got this. All right, so this is the day that the left has been waiting for, right? James Comey, the fired FBI guy, was going to get behind, they were going to get behind the stand in front of the Senate, and he was going to testify, and the Trump administration was going to be shattered by scandal. Trump weeping in his Oval Office before they came. The police came and just lifted him out and took him away. Not so much. Of course, we kind of knew this yesterday. He released an opening statement that he didn't actually make in the Intel hearing room, but he released a statement basically saying there are certain things. One thing that the mainstream media got right, and this is because now we know that Comey himself arranged for this to be leaked to the newspaper, was that Comey did take a memo saying that Donald Trump had asked him for certain things. He asked him for loyalty. He asked him to go easy on Michael Flynn, saying Michael Flynn was a good guy. Michael Flynn had already been fired, and basically this is, before he had even taken office, and he was just saying, I hope you can let this go. He didn't direct him to let it go. And then I think he said it again a week or so into his presidency. And but the thing that the mainstream media got wrong, what was the third thing he asked for? He asked for, this was the big thing, I think, in Trump's mind. He asked for Comey to go out and make a statement that he was not under investigation. And this was what the mainstream media got wrong, of course, was that Trump said three times, the FBI director Comey told him that he was not under any investigation. And this turned out to be true. CNN reported it wasn't true. I think the Washington Post reported it wasn't true. All their great anonymous sources telling other anonymous sources and then calling on the phone and reading memos over the phone. All this stuff turned out not to be true. Trump was right. Comey told him he was not under investigation. And you can, think back. Remember, this was right after the mainstream media, who is the Democrat Party, lost the election, and they went insane. And it was all because it had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton being a corrupt, terrible candidate, nothing to do with that, nothing to do with a country sick and tired of Barack Obama's meaningless, harmful policies, nothing to do with any of that. It all had to do with the Russians. It was all about the Russian spies. And they just hammered Trump with this collusion thing. There was a story in the New York Times about how his Trump's campaign people were constantly in contact with Russia. Comey has now testified that that was largely untrue, that the New York Times didn't know what they were talking about. So all of that stuff has gone by the boards. But this was just the stuff, it was driving Trump insane. And Trump wanted Comey to come out, as he had for Hillary Clinton, come out and say, you are not under investigation. So here's the big thing. So Comey sits down for his testimony today, and all of Washington and all of the left wing is waiting on tenterhooks. They've been waiting for weeks now for Comey to dump Trump under the truck and say he tried to obstruct justice. Not so much. Play clip number 2, which basically put an end to the scandal.
Director Comey, did the president at any time ask you to stop the FBI investigation into Russian involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections?
Not to my understanding, no.
Did any individual working for this administration, including the Justice Department, ask you to stop the Russian investigation?
No.
Director, when the president requested that you, and I quote, let Flynn go, General Flynn had an unreported contact with the Russians, which is an offense. And if press accounts are right, there might have been discrepancies between facts and his FBI testimony. In your estimation, was General Flynn at that time in serious legal jeopardy? And in addition to that, do you sense that the president was trying to obstruct justice or just seek for a way for Mike Flynn to save face, given he had already been fired?
Well, General Flynn at that point in time was in legal jeopardy. There was an open FBI criminal investigation of his statements in connection with the Russian contacts and the contacts themselves. And so that was my assessment at the time. I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense.
Now, this, remember, is the same guy, Comey, who declared that Hillary Clinton should not be prosecuted, something that was none of his business. He declared that Hillary Clinton should not be prosecuted because she had no intent to share classified material, even though she did share classified material, expose classified material. So he can pronounce on Hillary Clinton's thinking, but he couldn't pronounce on Donald Trump's thinking. Doesn't really matter. Look, for the next few days, as I told you yesterday, for the next few days, the left is going to scream and yell, but this basically bursts their balloon. He said that Donald Trump was not under investigation. He said it several times. He said it today again. Donald Trump was not under any criminal or intelligence investigation. He was not implicated at all. He didn't do anything. He says that the special counsel can figure out whether he was trying to obstruct justice. At one point, he said, I took this as an order. But as Eric Trump, as Trump's son, tweeted today, he said, when my father orders you to do something, you know you've been ordered. I don't think any of us could question whether or not this is true. You know, I just want to give my take on this right away before we have to break. We're going to have to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. But before I do, I just want to give my take on this because it's very rare that Chris Christie speaks my mind. But yesterday, after the show, I walked over to our new digs, the new studio that's under construction, and there was Michael Knowles, and don't think that he was doing any construction work because the day that Michael Knowles does any work whatsoever will be a different day than this one. But anyway, he read me basically the statement. And everybody was talking at once and everybody was commenting and I didn't say anything, but my reaction was almost exactly what Chris Christie's was. Here's Chris Christie commenting on Donald Trump's relations and discussions with Comey.
Listen, what people don't understand is that they elected an outsider president. Mm-hmm. They elected someone who had never been inside government and quite frankly didn't spend a lot of time interacting with government except at the local level. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of the tradition of these agencies is not something that he's ever been steeped in. So, I think over the course of time, and we could talk about different examples, what you're seeing is a president who is now very publicly learning about the way people react to what he considers to be normal New York City conversation.
Normal New York City conversation. That was exactly what I thought. See, Trump is so used as a construction guy to dealing with New York City Democrats. He didn't realize that you have to be subtle about your corruption in Washington, D.C. Because if you're a New York City Democrat, you don't have to be subtle because there's no Republican Party. So he just figured everyone was openly corrupt, though all the officials were openly corrupt the way they are in New York. This is a case of a blundering New York non-politician maneuvering with a very, very slick, inside, stiletto wielding political operative in James Comey. That's what this is. This is a very, I don't mean to impugn Comey because I think there's been on the right, there's been a lot of what a terrible, terrible guy he is. I don't think he's a terrible guy. He's a political operative. You don't get as high up in the government as he did without being a political operative. He's a very subtle, clever, self-aware political operative. Trump is a blundering New York guy used to working in a place where people talk a lot more bluntly than they do in the rest of the country. I've had this experience with Trump a number of times as a New Yorker where I thought yeah, that's kind of what I would say too, where the rest of the country goes insane. We're going to have to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, but before we do, we have to talk about 5-4 and the 5-4 Club. We were talking earlier about looking good and guys looking good, and I don't know about you, but I am not a big shopping guy. I mean, I am not somebody who wants to take my time wandering through clothing stores. Basically, at this point, I just wait for Christmas and my birthday and my wife dresses me. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. But this is a really good reason to join the 5-4 Club, because the 5-4 Club is a cheap and easy way for you to get fashionable clothes, so that what they do is you sign on for the 5-4 Club, and each month they send you a curated box of 2 to 3 items that are handpicked to match both the current season and your style. They have an interchange with you in which you establish your style and they pick stuff for you, and you're getting it at a very, very good price because you're in this club. They've been helping men with fashion for over 15 years. They ship to over 100,000 men every month, and they know what they're doing. So if you don't, that's okay. So you don't have to know. So the 5-4 Club will help you build your wardrobe 1 month at a time, ready for the season, ready for your style, because when you look good, that's when you feel good. Everybody knows about this. You get about $120 worth of clothes for just $60 a month, plus they have a lot of other things on their website, a great website, and all their other clothes, which come from other brands. 5-4 is a brand, but they have a lot of other brands, and if you belong to the club, you can get 50% off on any of the items they have. And plus this, you can pause or cancel anytime with no commitment. So it's really a terrific way to have your wardrobe curated. It's like having one of those personal shoppers that you get in stores, but you don't have to go to the store. You don't have to talk to the personal shopper. You just go on 5-4 Club. So you go to 54club.com. That's spelled out. It's not the numbers. 54club.com, and you enter the promo code Klavan. Once again, KLAV as in Victor AN, and they will give you 50% off your first month's package plus a free pair of sunglasses. That's pretty cool. So 50% off your first package at 5-4 Club, spelled FIVEFOUR club.com. And the promo code is Klavan, KLAVAN, 54club.com, promo code Klavan. And now we must say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Come on over to thedailywire.com and subscribe. You can have your questions answered in the mailbag. And if you subscribe for the year, you can get Ben's new book about the White Sox. Make a great Father's Day gift. Come on over.